General Hospital spoilers for next 2 weeks, from June 16th to 27th, reveal that the final chapter in Drew's downward spiral is no longer a question of if, but how devastating it will be. The past few months have seen Drew clinging to control like a man gripping a ledge, and now that the ledge has crumbled beneath him, the story of his fall is unfolding with alarming speed and precision. His carefully curated image, businessman, hero, father figure, has been dismantled piece by piece. The latest adjustments in the lives of those around him have begun to expose the structural rot beneath his once impenetrable persona. And the most damning blow of all? It isn't coming from a stranger or a sworn enemy, it's coming from within his inner circle, by those he once relied on most. Michael and Carly have quietly, methodically been preparing to take full control of the narrative. What began as subtle shifts in allegiance and tone has now morphed into strategic action designed to sever Drew's influence entirely. For Carly, the journey has been intensely personal, shaped by betrayal and regret. For Michael, it's a matter of justice, family, and reclaiming power stolen from him by the very man who once vowed to protect him. Together, they're not just responding to Drew's actions, they're orchestrating the final act of his downfall. The shocking twist in this unraveling tragedy comes in the form of Curtis's successful retrieval of Jacinda, an enigmatic figure whose very presence threatens to detonate Drew's last standing defense. Curtis, once thought to be focused solely on rebuilding his own fractured life, has now emerged as a game-changer in this volatile equation. By bringing Jacinda back, he's brought with her the living embodiment of a secret Drew thought had been buried forever. And this revelation isn't just scandalous, it's lethal. Jacinda's testimony has the potential to destroy Drew legally, morally, and publicly. She holds the key to exposing two damning truths. That Drew once hired her for a night of passion, under highly questionable pretenses, and that he willingly consumed ketamine. An admission that could dismantle any credibility he might retain in the custody war or his public reputation. It is a revelation so explosive, so recklessly damning, that once it's released into the public domain, Drew's story will shift from one of resilience to disgrace. But this isn't just a legal drama, it's a psychological unspooling of a man who built his identity on control. The very idea of being outmaneuvered by Carly, Curtis, and even Michael gnaws at Drew with an intensity that borders on madness. He believed he could manipulate outcomes, that his past could be rewritten through sheer force of will. But those around him have awakened. Carly, who once believed in redemption and second chances, now sees the irreparable cracks in Drew's foundation. She stopped trying to fix him. She started preparing to live without him. And that quiet shift in her gaze is more damning than any legal testimony. Michael, once manipulated and emotionally blackmailed into tolerating Drew's interference, now stands firm. He's no longer the boy who needed a father figure, he's a man building a future. And Drew has no place in it. Even Jason, the one person Drew hoped to recruit to his side, has distanced himself. The silence from Jason isn't accidental. It's judgment. The final preparations being made by Michael and Carly are not just symbolic, they are tactical. Documents are being signed. Guardianship plans are being revised. Business portfolios are being adjusted. Every detail signals one clear message: they are severing Drew's ties to everything he once called his legacy. Aurora, once a joint dream, will no longer have room for him. The Corinthos children, once the emotional bait Drew used to hold sway over Willow and Michael, are being shielded from him. His presence, once seen as noble and steadfast, is now a source of anxiety, instability, and deep-seated resentment. The courts are watching. So is the media. And more importantly, so is the town. The tide has turned, and Drew is now the cautionary tale whispered in corner booths and courtroom hallways. Curtis's role in this is perhaps the most ironic. Once a man caught in the web of his own miscalculations, he has emerged as the unexpected truth-bearer. His decision to track down Jacinda wasn't born from vengeance, it was born from clarity. He saw in Drew what others refused to see, a man who used truth as a tool, not a value. And now, with Jacinda in tow, Curtis has forced the truth to take center stage. If Jacinda testifies, and all signs point to her willingness to do so for the right price, Drew's case for custody, his standing in the community, and his business ambitions will be annihilated. There's no recovering from what's coming. And Drew knows it. The desperation in his recent actions, the frantic phone calls, the sudden rebranding of his narrative, all point to a man who sees the end and is trying to outrun it. But the end is no longer on the horizon, it's already here. The fallout of Drew's demise won't just impact him. Nina, already skating on thin ice due to her past entanglements and questionable business dealings, finds herself drawn back into the fire. Her old ties to Drew, once a carefully guarded secret, are now a liability. The whispers about their past, about what she may have known, or helped conceal, could destroy what little credibility she has left in Port Charles. Nina has always lived dangerously close to the edge of exposure. Now, Drew's collapse could pull her over entirely. Carly, too, is prepared for this. She's kept her distance, played the long game, and now stands as the only one who can walk away clean. That's her power. That's her revenge. Even as Drew scrambles for a lifeline, the walls close in. Jacinda, no longer the mysterious woman from his past but a living, breathing weapon of truth, is ready to speak. The courtroom will not be kind. The media, already sniffing around for inconsistencies in Drew's narrative, will feast on every salacious detail. And Willow, once a source of solace, now finds herself questioning everything. Can she stand by a man whose foundation is built on lies? Can she justify the choices she's made in the name of love, when love is so tangled in manipulation? Drew's end, when it finally comes, won't be a single dramatic explosion. It will be a series of deliberate, calculated strikes delivered by those he underestimated most. Carly's cold distance, Michael's decisive rejections, Jason's silence, Curtis's revelations, and Jacinda's testimony, each is a dagger. And Drew, stripped of allies and stripped of armor, will be left to bleed in public view. That is the tragedy of a man who thought he could outmaneuver the truth. He cannot. This is the final transformation of a man who began with hope and ends in ruin. Drew Kane's fall is not an accident, it is a consequence. And it is no longer coming. It's here. Sasha is no longer the grieving mother clutching at broken pieces of her life. She has become a storm cloaked in silence. A woman who has passed the threshold between desperation and deliberate control. No one in Port Charles saw it coming, not Carly, not Michael, not even Willow, who once considered herself Sasha's closest confidant. And yet now, with the sudden and unexplained disappearance of Daisy, the entire town is being forced to reckon with a terrifying possibility. Sasha may no longer be acting as a victim of trauma, but as the engineer of her own chaos, a woman who has weaponized motherhood to reclaim power in a world that tried to bury her. From the outside, it still appears plausible that Sasha is just overwhelmed, caught in a storm she cannot manage. But for those paying close attention, every moment of silence, every missed appointment, every calmly delivered lie, none of it seems accidental anymore. Sasha is calculating, meticulous, and perhaps most dangerously of all, emotionally detached from the consequences of her actions. If Daisy's disappearance is something orchestrated, whether to protect or to provoke, then Sasha has crossed a line that no one expected her to ever approach again. Michael is unraveling. The man who once believed he could balance compassion with control, logic with love, is now standing on shifting ground. Daisy is his child, his connection to Sasha. To a past he no longer wants but cannot entirely sever. And now, the very person he entrusted to safeguard their daughter may be the one holding her hostage, emotionally or otherwise. Michael has been through too many betrayals to not recognize the signs, but this one hits differently. This isn't just about legal custody or a failed relationship. This is about safety. About trust. About the gut-wrenching realization that he may have misjudged the one person he tried hardest to protect. He turns to Carly, seeking clarity, hoping that maybe, just maybe, her instincts will be sharper than his. But Carly is no longer in the business of saving Sasha. She sees through her now. She sees the cold, deliberate nature of Sasha's choices, the way she's begun to hold people hostage with fear, using silence as a weapon, withholding information just long enough to keep everyone on edge. Carly knows this game. She's played it. She's mastered it. But Sasha? Sasha has evolved it. And that terrifies her. Willow, once Sasha's fiercest defender, is spiraling in a different direction. She fought for Sasha in courtrooms, in family meetings, in whispered conversations when no one else believed in her. She convinced herself that redemption was possible, that Sasha could be trusted. That all she needed was one more chance. But now, with Daisy missing and Sasha refusing to cooperate or even show remorse, Willow is left questioning everything. Did she enable this? Did her blind faith give Sasha the space to create this nightmare? And if Sasha is capable of this level of manipulation, what else is she hiding? Willow is caught in the space between guilt and horror, unable to justify Sasha's choices but equally unable to let go of the love and loyalty that once defined their friendship. Jason watches from a distance, silent as always but far from uninvolved. He sees the cracks forming, the truth beginning to leak out from the spaces between Sasha's carefully crafted sentences. He's seen this before, in others, in himself. The moment when someone stops fighting for redemption and begins embracing destruction. Jason knows Sasha's story. He knows her pain. But even he cannot deny the danger now radiating from her. If Daisy's disappearance is Sasha's doing, if she's hiding her daughter, using her as leverage, then this is no longer a mental health crisis. It's a threat. And Jason, loyal though he may be to the people he once protected, is preparing to act. Because if Sasha has gone rogue, if she's become a danger not just to herself but to a child, then someone will have to step in. And Jason has never been one to wait for the courts to catch up. Meanwhile, Curtis finds himself drawn into the orbit of Sasha's collapse in a way he never anticipated. He's just returned from orchestrating the takedown of Drew, bringing Jacinda back to unravel a web of lies and deceit that shook Port Charles to its core. He thought he'd done his part. He thought his focus could return to rebuilding his own life. But Sasha's storm is pulling him in again. Rumors of her recent interactions, her strange meetings, her late-night movements, they all trace back to something deeper, something hidden. Curtis begins to suspect that Sasha's actions are not merely impulsive but methodically planned. And as he starts to dig, he realizes that Sasha's transformation may have begun long before Daisy disappeared. She was preparing for this. She was laying the groundwork. And everyone else was too busy watching Drew implode to notice. But what if Sasha believes she's saving Daisy? That she's removing her daughter from a world filled with judgment, corruption, and emotional instability? What if she sees Michael and Carly not as protectors, but as threats, people who will one day turn Daisy against her? Who will use their influence and money to rewrite the narrative and steal her child away forever? In that context, Sasha isn't just being manipulative. She's being strategic, ruthless, devastatingly clear. She's not acting out of madness. She's acting out of conviction. And that's what makes her truly terrifying. Because a woman who believes she is right, a woman who believes she has nothing left to lose, will go further than anyone expects. The silence surrounding Daisy's whereabouts is deafening. Every unanswered question, every delayed response, every vague excuse is another knife twist into the heart of the Corinthos family. The media begins to catch wind of the story, painting Sasha in broad, damning strokes, a troubled mother, a missing child, a custody battle gone wrong. But the truth is far more complex, and far more dangerous. Sasha is not out of control. She is very much in control. And that makes her infinitely harder to stop. If Daisy is returned unharmed, if Sasha comes forward and offers an explanation that convinces even the most skeptical hearts, there may still be time for redemption. But the longer this goes on, the more unlikely that becomes. Every hour that passes is a reminder that Sasha has chosen this path. That she is not a bystander in a tragic story, but its author. She is rewriting the narrative of her life with fire, and the embers are beginning to catch. Relationships will burn. Trust will collapse. And the image of Sasha as a grieving mother deserving of compassion will vanish, replaced by a new, colder truth. She is the storm, and she's no longer afraid of who she destroys. And so the question remains, not where Daisy is, not even whether Sasha will be caught. The question is how far she's willing to go. How much she's willing to lose. And whether anyone in Port Charles is ready for the woman Sasha has become. Because the reckoning is no longer approaching, it has arrived. And Sasha, for better or worse, is standing at the center of it, daring anyone to try and stop her. Emma is no longer the quiet, observant girl hiding behind the shadow of her parents' legacy. She is emerging as a woman who understands the magnetic power of influence and the devastating consequences that come with wielding it. Her growing entanglement with Dalton has become the epicenter of a slow-burning transformation, one that no longer feels accidental or innocent. At first, it appeared to be a schoolgirl crush. A fleeting infatuation with an enigmatic man twice her age, brilliant and cold, the kind of figure who commands attention without ever asking for it. But Emma's gaze has sharpened. Her intentions have shifted. What began as curiosity has evolved into a dangerous form of seduction. And her pursuit of Dalton now feels less like admiration and more like an experiment, an unraveling test of control, power, and psychological boundary. Dalton, ever the stoic intellect, didn't immediately react to Emma's subtle advances. He regarded her with that same clinical detachment he reserved for all who attempted to breach the fortress of his mind. But lately, something has changed. Emma's presence lingers longer in his peripheral vision. Her questions have become bolder. Her charm has matured into something precise, timed, disarming. And behind her soft expressions and strategically timed vulnerability is a mind that is learning not only how to challenge Dalton, but how to manipulate the tempo of their connection. Emma is no longer reaching for his approval. She's forcing him to acknowledge her power, and whether Dalton admits it or not, it's working. But this transformation in Emma hasn't gone unnoticed. Particularly by Gio, whose once playful fascination with her is now laced with confusion, suspicion, and a creeping sense of betrayal. Gio, who once thought of Emma as a kindred spirit, intelligent, idealistic, occasionally reckless but never cruel, now finds himself staring at someone he no longer recognizes. The lightness that once defined her has darkened into something unpredictable. There is a weight behind her words now, a veiled sharpness in her glances. He sees her leaning in too close to Dalton, speaking too softly, smiling in ways that no longer feel sincere. And the realization cuts deeper than he's willing to admit. Emma is changing, and she's not looking back. Joe's internal storm intensifies with every encounter he witnesses between Emma and Dalton. It's not just jealousy, though jealousy burns at the edges, it's a profound sense of loss. The Emma he knew, or thought he knew, is slipping through his fingers. He can't decide whether she's being manipulated or doing the manipulating, and the ambiguity is killing him. He tries to confront her with humor, with concern, even with silence. But nothing seems to reach her anymore. She's speaking a different language now, a language of power dynamics, of psychological warfare, of emotional detachment wrapped in flirtation. And Gio, for all his instincts and intensity, feels ill-equipped to compete with the mysterious, calculated pull Dalton exudes. Emma, meanwhile, is consumed not just by Dalton but by the transformation unfolding within herself. She feels the shift in her bones. The awakening of parts of her that once lay dormant beneath years of expectations and boundaries. She is stepping out from the identity she was handed and beginning to write her own, with ink made of temptation, control, and dangerous curiosity. And Dalton, for all his experience and defenses, is beginning to respond. That shift in his posture when she enters the room, the pause before he answers her questions. The rare moments his carefully constructed mask slips, these are the small victories Emma collects in silence. But the closer she gets to him, the more volatile the chemistry becomes. What started as a game is spiraling into something more unstable, more combustible. This new Emma is a revelation that is shocking to those around her, but perhaps most of all to herself. She is discovering how intoxicating it feels to be seen not as a daughter, not as a student, but as a woman who can bend the rules, tempt fate, and draw power from ambiguity. And yet, buried beneath that rising confidence is something fragile and deeply unresolved. Because in her pursuit of control, Emma is also walking a tightrope, one misstep away from falling into a version of herself she may not be able to come back from. And that is precisely what makes the situation so explosive. Gio is reaching his breaking point. The more he sees Emma slipping toward Dalton's orbit, the more reckless his emotions become. He finds himself haunted by memories of simpler days. When Emma laughed freely, when their conversations were about dreams and not manipulation. Now, every interaction with her feels like a performance, measured, rehearsed, transactional. He wants to save her, but he doesn't know what from. Dalton? Herself? Or perhaps from the truth Gio refuses to say aloud, that Emma is enjoying this. That she wants the power she's tasting. And she might not want to be saved at all. And then, the moment of detonation. One mistake. One overheard conversation, one too long glance. One intimate silence between Emma and Dalton that doesn't require words. Gio sees it. Feels it. And he breaks. The outburst doesn't come in the form of confrontation, it comes in withdrawal. In coldness, in the kind of pain that silences a heart. Emma notices. Of course she does. But she says nothing. She lets the space grow, lets Gio drift. Because she knows that acknowledging it would mean admitting to herself that this new version of her has consequences. Real ones. Ones that hurt people she once loved without hesitation. But the fire's already spreading. The tension between Emma and Dalton has reached a point of no return. The lines have blurred. The rules have bent. And whether or not anything physical ever happens between them is now irrelevant. The emotional affair is real. The power struggle is real. And the fallout? Inevitable. Emma is standing at the edge of something irreversible. She has awakened to a force within her that is thrilling, terrifying, and utterly destabilizing. And the boy who once held her heart is watching her burn it all down for a man whose approval may cost her soul. The transformation is complete, and what comes next will not be subtle. It will be seismic. Because when desire turns into strategy and innocence turns into ambition, someone always gets hurt. And in this case, that someone might be everyone. Tracy is poised on the precipice of a new kind of control, one she hasn't wielded in years, not just influence behind the scenes, but a direct, unapologetic seat at the center of the chaos erupting in Port Charles. With her eyes sharp and her instincts honed from decades of corporate warfare and family betrayal. She's recognizing the tides shifting around her and is moving to capitalize on them with ruthless precision. This isn't a comeback. This is a reinvention. A recalibration of power. Tracy is no longer content to observe the implosion from afar, she's stepping into the fire, gloves off, prepared to impose order by any means necessary. Even if it means turning on allies and family alike. Michael, meanwhile, is undergoing his own metamorphosis, and it's one Tracy recognizes all too well. He's shedding the final remnants of moral hesitation and embracing a more dominant, strategic role in both business and family dynamics. The collapse of his relationship with Drew. The emotional volatility of Willow, the rising tension with Carly. And now the alarming instability surrounding Sasha have forced Michael into a new posture, one of cold efficiency and unapologetic assertion. He's no longer the young man seeking approval or unity. He's the architect of a new regime, and those who stand in his way, regardless of blood or loyalty, will be eliminated from his path. That includes Tracy. Their impending collision isn't just personal. It's philosophical. Tracy operates with legacy in mind, a long view shaped by decades of courtermain warfare and learned betrayals. She sees Michael's growing ambition as dangerous, not because it threatens her, but because it threatens the integrity of the Quartermain name. To her, he is risking too much, moving too fast, wielding power without the necessary respect for consequences. Michael, on the other hand, sees Tracy as an outdated relic clinging to traditions that have failed them time and again. He's tired of compromise, tired of waiting. And now, with access to information, resources, and allies that even Tracy can't fully account for, Michael is preparing to make a move that could redefine the future of ELQ, the Corinthos influence, and everything that once held their fractured families together. What makes this battle so explosive is not the power each of them holds, it's how similarly they operate. Both are brilliant, manipulative, and always 3 steps ahead. Both believe they are doing what's best. And both are willing to destroy the other to prove it. Their mutual respect masks a deeper tension that has been simmering for months. Tracy disapproves of Michael's handling of the custody war, his alliance with Carly, and his reckless confrontation with Drew. Michael resents Tracy's interference, her constant undermining, and her tendency to hold old Quartermain debts over his head. But now, with the revelation that someone may have bribed Judge Eva Heron to sway the custody verdict in Michael's favor, and rumors swirling that Tracy may have had a hand in either orchestrating or covering you. The deal, the powder keg has been lit. Michael is aware. He's digging. Quietly, methodically. And with the kind of intensity that signals he's not just looking for the truth, he's looking for leverage. And Tracy knows it. She can feel the balance shifting beneath her feet. The look in Michael's eyes has changed. There is no more gratitude, no more familial deference. There is calculation. Ice. Strategy. This is not just a feud. It's a declaration of war. And Port Charles is about to feel the full effect of what happens when 2 titans from the same bloodline wage psychological warfare on each other in the open. Allies will be forced to choose sides. Secrets long buried will be pulled to the surface. Legal repercussions will begin to swirl around the custody case, around Drew's potential implosion, and around the future of both ELQ and the Corinthos estate. Jason will find himself torn between the instincts of loyalty and the undeniable necessity of survival. Carly will try to keep peace. But peace is no longer part of the equation. Not when Tracy and Michael are moving their pieces across the same board, both believing that only one can stand when it's over. Every conversation, every boardroom meeting, every family dinner will become a battlefield. And behind the smirks, the passive-aggressive compliments, and the tight smiles, there will be knives waiting to be drawn. Tracy sees this as her last great play, a chance to solidify her legacy and remind everyone, especially Michael, that she is still a force to be feared. Michael, on the other hand, is determined to dismantle the old world Tracy clings to and build something leaner, stronger, and entirely his own. What neither of them knows yet is how far the other is willing to go. And when the final move is made, when the last lie is exposed and the last ally turns, the explosion won't just be between them. It will consume everyone caught in the crossfire. Because this is no longer about business, no longer about family. This is about legacy. About dominance. About rewriting the future. And in this war, there can be no truce. Only victory, or destruction.